Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 2 2021 NFL predictions. Well, for the Fanatic this week, I was fortunately able to, in the crazy Week 1 atmosphere and all the different outcomes, I was able to survive and have a above 500 record in both my against the spread and straight up picks. So far for this week, I am 8-6-1 against the spread, and straight up, I am 9-6. That equals up to 56.7% against the spread and 60% straight up. So definitely not the way I would want in terms of the best record. Obviously I want 10 wins for each, and I do have tonight's game between the Ravens and Raiders at the Ravens -4.5, and the Ravens winning straight up. So that will give me possibly 10 straight up wins, but 9-6-1 against the spread. I'm good with it, though I would like to be a lot better moving forward. And of course, obviously, with the first week of the year, my overall records are 8-6-1 against the spread and straight up 9-6. I am going to go straight into my picks. I will talk about the rest of the games throughout, or I will talk about the reasoning for the games and the previous week's games throughout each of my analysis of each prediction. But here we go to get started. So on Thursday, when the 0-1 New York Giants go to the 0-1 Washington football team, the Washington football team are 4-point favorites in this game. I like the Washington football team here to win straight up, but give me the New York Giants +4. Then the next game, when the 1-0 Cincinnati Bengals go to the 0-1 Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears are 3.5-point favorites in this game. In an upset, give me the Cincinnati Bengals +3.5, and the Cincinnati Bengals to win straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-0 Houston Texans go to the 0-1 Cleveland Browns, the Cleveland Browns are 11.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Cleveland Browns here to win straight up. Then I'm going to take the Houston Texans +11.5. Then the next game, when the 1-0 Los Angeles Rams go to the 0-1 Indianapolis Colts, the LA Rams are 4-point favorites in this game. I like the Los Angeles Rams here -4. And the Los Angeles Rams straight up. Then the next game, when the 0-1 Buffalo Bills go to the 1-0 Miami Dolphins, the Buffalo Bills are 3.5-point favorites in this game. I like the Miami Dolphins here +3.5, but give me the Buffalo Bills here straight up. Then the next game, when the 0-1 New England Patriots go to the 0-1 New York Jets, the New England Patriots are 4-point favorites in this game. I like the New England Patriots here -4, and the New England Patriots straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-0 San Francisco 49ers travel to Philadelphia to take on the 1-0 Philadelphia Eagles, the Philadelphia Eagles are 3.5-point underdogs in this game. For my second upset pick of the week, I'm going to take the Philadelphia Eagles here +3.5, and the Philadelphia Eagles straight up. Then the next game, when the 0-1 or 1-0 Las Vegas Raiders travel to Pittsburgh to take on the 1-0 Pittsburgh Steelers, the Pittsburgh Steelers are 6-point favorites in this game. I like Pittsburgh here -6. And Pittsburgh straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-0 New Orleans Saints go to the 1-0 Carolina Panthers, the New Orleans Saints are 4-point favorites in this game. I like the New Orleans Saints here -4, and New Orleans Saints straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-0 Denver Broncos travel to Jacksonville to take on the 0-1 Jacksonville Jaguars, the Denver Broncos are 6-point favorites in this game. I like Denver here -6, and Denver straight up. Then the next game, when the 0-1 Minnesota Vikings travel to Arizona to take on the 1-0 Arizona Cardinals, the Arizona Cardinals are 4-point favorites in this game. I like Arizona here -4, and Arizona straight up. Then the next game, when the 0-1 Atlanta Falcons travel to Tampa Bay to take on the 1-0 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 12.5-point favorites in this game. I like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here -12.5, and Tampa Bay straight up. Then the next game, when the 0-1 Dallas Cowboys travel to Los Angeles to take on the 1-0 Los Angeles Chargers, the Los Angeles Chargers are 2.5-point favorites in this game. I like the LA Chargers here -2.5, and LA Chargers straight up. Then the next game, when the 0-1 Tennessee Titans travel to Seattle to take on the 1-0 Seattle Seahawks, the Seattle Seahawks are 5.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Seattle Seahawks here -5.5, and the Seattle Seahawks straight up. And then in the Sunday night game, when the 1-0 Kansas City Chiefs go to the 0-1 or 1-0 Baltimore Ravens, the Chiefs are 2.5-point favorites in this game. I like the Kansas City Chiefs here -2.5, and the Kansas City Chiefs straight up. And then finally, in the Monday Night Football game next week, when the 0-1 Detroit Lions go to the 0-1 Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers are 10.5-point favorites in this game. I like the Green Bay Packers here to win straight up, but give me the Detroit Lions plus 10.5. Alright, so time for my thoughts on each game. The Washington football team over the New York Giants. Ladies and gentlemen, if you watched both of their games, both teams did not look that great overall in a lot of senses. The New York Giants looked absolutely dreadful in terms of how their offensive line played. Saquon Barkley only had 26 yards. Daniel Jones had 2 more turnovers. The Giants' defense was getting rolled by Melvin Gordon, who had 101 yards on 7 rushes and a touchdown. Jerry Jeudy had some nice receptions, though he did leave the game with a high ankle sprain. Best of luck to his health. And I just really wasn't impressed. And Daniel Jones and the Giants really look like they're still not an improved team, even with all the receivers that they added. They brought in Adoree Jackson, they brought in Big Cat Leonard Williams, and it really didn't matter, and the Giants just looked so dreadful. And Washington, for the most part, Washington had its stretches. They held Austin Eckler to about 50, 55, 57 yards. He had that 1 touchdown early, but didn't do anything else. But that secondary was getting rolled through Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Guyton. I forget his first name, but Guyton had a nice reception. And Justin Herbert played a pretty effective game. The only big mistake he had was a turnover from Montez Sweat, which was a big difference maker. They got the Washington football team in the red zone, but Antonio Gibson ended up fumbling right around their goal line, which allowed the Chargers to score in the next possession. And there was big news. Obviously, the big injury was Ryan Fitzpatrick, the number 1 quarterback for the Washington football team, suffered a hip dislocation, and I have just heard that he is going to be put on the injured reserve, which means that Taylor Heineke, the quarterback that started the playoff game last year, is now going to be the long-term starter, with Kyle Allen being the backup. In this game, look, I did the Giants +4 for one specific reason. I think the Giants and Daniel Jones is probably better than Heineke at this point, but it's just, in these kind of cruddy toss-up games where diehard fans and fans of the fan bases are going to be the only fans watching this game, I went with the home team, and I think Taylor Heineke will make a few less mistakes compared to Daniel Jones against the Washington defense. I think this game, it's not going to be very entertaining in terms of offense. It's going to be pretty lackluster, a lot of mistakes, a lot of 3-and-outs. But if you love defense, this is a great game for those kind of people. But I just look at the New York Giants and Washington going, I'm going to go with the home team, the quarterback that I think is going to make a few fewer mistakes, and who I think is going to have a harder time against the respective defensive fronts. And all that leans towards Washington. But this game is such a 50-50 game, I had to hedge, because I honestly think this could be a 10-7, 13-10 game, or 6-3 game, with how bad these offenses looked, for the most part, in Week 1. So that's why the New York Giants here +4, but the Washington football team straight up. The next game, the Cincinnati Bengals over the Chicago Bears. This one is tough, because I have to give the Bengals a tremendous amount of credit. I thought they played a great game against the Minnesota Vikings. Joe Mixon had over 100 yards rushing. I thought their defense, in a lot of moments, came up with consistent stops, or they were able to hold the Vikings enough to keep them within the game. Of course, they got the big fumble on Dalvin Cook at the end of the game, which allowed Evan McPherson to hit a 38-yard field goal. Good for the rookie. What a big moment to get the Bengals their first win in an opening game in a while. Joe Burrow, I thought, played well. He had 2 touchdowns, including the one big 50-yarder to Jamar Chase. Tiger connection for the Bengal Tiger. The only thing left, maybe Joe Burrow will become the Tiger King, and maybe Jamar Chase can beat Carol Baskin, but that's a completely different Tiger reference. To get back to the game. And I just really like what the Bengals did. And the Bears, I watched that game last night, and I have to tell everybody that watched the Bears game, I thought it was... The Bears had moments where they were better than the score indicated, and there was a point where they were only down by 6 points. But Andy Dalton, the moment of the game that it changed the whole outcome to me was when Andy Dalton threw that interception after Montgomery had that big run that got him in the red zone. As soon as that happened, I basically knew that, hey, the Bears aren't going to win this game. And Justin Fields, I thought, he should be starting really after this week. After watching Andy play, it wasn't great, and I don't have the confidence. And I probably would take Fields if he was starting, if Nagy made the decision, but I think he's still sticking with Andy. It's only 1 week. Justin Fields did have that nice scramble touchdown, but the Bears deserve better from their quarterback position, especially with the team they have. I thought Jimmy Graham and Cole Kmet did nice. And the Bears were able to move the ball when they stopped throwing it to Jalen Ramsey, which everybody should. But I just have to take the Bengals here. I think the Bengals They have a good enough run game. I think Joe Burrow can make a few more plays than Andy Dalton. And if I have to take Zach Taylor with what I saw with what the Bengals have right now over Matt Nagy and what he has, especially with play calling and decision making and clock management, I have to go with the Bengals here to pull this victory off. But I'd be surprised if the Chicago Bears won this game. Not at all. I think the Bears, on paper, probably have more talent, and that the offensive line for the Bengals held up for the most part. But by the end, Joe Burrow was getting hit and he was getting sacked. But I'm just going to go with the better quarterback here. I think the Bengals put up a better effort against a comparable team in Minnesota. The Bears don't nearly have as many dynamic offensive weapons on the outside besides Allen Robinson, so that's a plus for them. And I'm going to have to trust Taylor and Burrow over Dalton and Nagy for this game, especially for a home opener. So, also, it's going to be an interesting time for the Bears. They may be leaving Soldier Field, or they don't want to, but they may be leaving Soldier Field to go, I heard about 90 minutes north in a suburb of, I think it was Arlington Heights. Any Bears fans to watch, please let me know if I got that wrong or right. But that's why I like the Cincinnati Bengals here, plus 3.5, and Cincinnati Bengals straight up. The next game, the Cleveland Browns over the Houston Texans. This one is fairly easy on paper because I feel like, again, the Cleveland Browns put up a tremendous effort against the Kansas City Chiefs yesterday. They actually blew that game, in my opinion. They had a 22-10 lead at halftime, and they had a 29-20 lead out of 10 minutes to go. Nick Chubb had 85 yards on 15 carries with 2 rushing touchdowns. Baker was pretty effective. He had 330 yards. He did have that one pick late, but that wasn't all his fault. He was getting tripped up by his legs, and Mike Hughes Mike Hughes just got into the ball. The ball's trajectory was thrown off course with a tackle from Daniel Sorensen. And I think the Browns just overall, they played the Texans last year. This was a 10-7 game. That was the famous big run last year where Nick Chubb got down to the end zone, but he stepped up the 1 yard line so they could drain out the clock. And the Browns are just clearly significantly better in a lot of ways. I think the Texans did surprise a lot of people. Not me, as one of the 20% of, the pickers, the prognosticators, the people that pick games every week, like I do, like ESPN and all these other places had 20% had it on the Texans. And I did not understand that, ladies and gentlemen that are watching. I didn't get that. The Jacksonville Jaguars had a horrific preseason. They had one good stretch against the Cowboys' third stringers, and they won that game, but that was the third preseason game, which was the last one, so I really didn't count any of that. In their first 2 games, they looked like absolute dog crap. Okay? So, anybody out there that kind of thought that Tyrod couldn't win this game, that's what I'm saying. Like, Tyrod Taylor, he's not, he's not horrible. Like, he's a good bridge quarterback, and if you give him enough time, and he can move, and he won't make mistakes, he can win games like that against a very bad Jags team. And like I said in my video last week, if you really think about it, the Jags won week 1 in kind of the same scenario. Much different competition, obviously, but the Texans could go 0-16 after this point. They could. I just don't think they'll win this game against this bad Jags team. But we'll have to wait and see. But that's why I'm taking the Texans plus 11.5, because you can't have Tyrod. Tyrod can play against the Browns defense. This is a little bit of a revenge game for Tyrod. Remember, he was traded from the Browns he was traded to the Browns by the Bills in 2018 before he got hurt in the Jets game, and Baker had his run that he's on now. So I think he's been motivated, and the Texans really have no expectation. They don't really have any expectation for winning, for results, and they already have a win, and they're leading in the AFC South. And I think even by the end of this week, they're still going to be leading in the AFC South for 2 weeks, which I don't think anybody expected. Speaking of what's going on in Houston with Deshaun Watson. I think this game could be more competitive than people think. I think that spread is way too high for a Texans team that did a much better and more dominating job on the Cleveland Browns than anybody thought. But I do think the Cleveland Browns are just way too talented. Just in a lot of ways, they'll be motivated to, avenge this Browns loss, which a lot of people should have expected, because apparently I saw this last night during the Sunday Night Football game. The Browns only won one Week 1 regular season opener since 1999 when they were reactivated after the original Browns moved to Baltimore. So, playing in Week 1 for the Browns just is not a very good thing. So, tough for that. Should be an interesting game, though. I think the Browns, again, clearly the better football team. They'll be motivated. They're at home. I think the Texans, they're not as good as they showed against Jacksonville, but I think they're going to be good enough that they can compete against the Browns in a way that people would be surprised. So that's why I like the Cleveland Browns here. The Cleveland Browns here straight up. I give you the Houston Texans plus 11.5. The next game, the Los Angeles Rams over the Indianapolis Colts. I'm going to take the Los Angeles Rams here simply because Matthew Stafford and the Rams played a flawless, or pretty much flawless, perfect game in my opinion against a very decent Bears defense. The Bears defense could not tackle at all. Cooper Kupp had 7 receptions for 107 yards and a touchdown. Darrell Henderson had a nice rushing touchdown. I thought his first touchdown throw, he was the first quarterback to have a debut where he had 2 50-plus yard touchdown passes. Kudos to Van Jefferson for catching Stafford's first Ram touchdown. I thought the Rams defense did a fantastic job for the most part of being able to bend but not break. There were moments where, if you watch the game, the Bears were able to move the football from practically the 40 to 40 in the first drive, obviously, to the goal line, and David Long coming up with the big interception. And I just really like what this Rams team has. I think, again, after what everybody saw through week 1 so far, I think the Rams are clearly the second best team in the NFC. And I just think they're playing a Colts team that is not as good. And I think the biggest shock from that Seahawks-Colts game, ladies and gentlemen, was watching the Colts offensive line. That Colts offensive line got dominated by the Seahawks defensive line. The Seahawks defensive line is not horrible, but against that offensive line, it should have looked that way. Carson Wentz was under duress pretty much the entire game. He got sacked 2 or 3 times. He had the fumble on the quarterback sneak, which was bad. They really held Taylor and Mack pretty much in check. They really missed T.Y. Hilton. That was one of the big reasons why I took the Seahawks to beat the Colts yesterday, was they really didn't have any big receiving threat outside of really anybody. Or Zach Pascal had a nice touchdown. But besides that, no other Colt receiver really could make a lot of big plays for them. And you go from playing the Seahawks secondary to playing Jalen Ramsey, who can pretty much shut down Pittman or whoever, and you're asking Carson Wentz to beat the Rams defense with that offensive line of Aaron Donald with no receiver that has any really significant meaning. Yeah, good luck with that. I think this game, it's going to be probably just as ugly as the Seahawks, but not worse, because I feel like the Rams defense is better than Seattle's. So Raheem Morris should have another good game to put up on his resume for this year. And I think the only reason why Frank Reich and the Colts are still alive is basically how bad that whole AFC South is. Through week 1, the Texans are the best team in that division, and I don't think anybody at any point throughout the year expected to say that the Texans were going to be the best team in that division at all. If the Colts offensive line can look at Chicago, or they can play up to their strength and limit Donald, and they can run the ball with Marlon Mack, Jonathan Taylor, and Nakeem Hines, who was the most overpaid third running back in the NFL, or third down running back in the NFL at $6 million a year. If they can hold on, I think the Colts might have a chance, but I don't think they will. And I think the Rams, just with Stafford going up against secondary, they didn't have Xavier Rhodes. Julian Blackmon's okay, but Tyler Higbee, I think, can beat up Julian Blackmon with that offense. And I think the Rams get a nice, easy win to go to 2-0 and just keep rolling for their big game next weekend against Tampa Bay and Los Angeles. That could be an NFC Championship game preview. So that's like the LA Rams are -4 and the LA Rams straight up. The next game, the Buffalo Bills over the Miami Dolphins. This one to me is very tough because I saw the Buffalo Bills, and that is one of the most disappointing performances of the entire weekend. Josh Allen might have swindled the Buffalo Bills out of $256 million because that did not look like 2020 Josh Allen at all. That more looked like 2018, 2019 Josh Allen, which who had a cannon of an arm but could not hit the side of Orchard Park or Highmark Stadium every 2 out of 5 throws. He just couldn't hit anybody. And the defense, and Sanders, Beasley, Diggs, they really couldn't get anything going against the Steelers defense. Kudos to the Steelers defense, who T.J. Watt had two sacks and a fumble. What a great way to start earning his $118 million or $112 million extension. But it was just such a dreadful performance by the Bills that it really made me disappointed. And I was disappointed in Sean McDermott for making some of the poor coaching decisions. I'd give Sean McDermott a D for his coaching. I don't understand. You have 5 minutes and 23 seconds left. You're down by 10. You're at the Pittsburgh 7. It's 4th and goal. You go for it there. You go for it there and try to make it 17 because the Steelers they go down for the field goal and it's 23-17 instead of 20-13 to where they know they basically, if all they get a field goal, they've won the game. So for me, that was just a really bad decision. Just kind of combined with the field goal at the end. They were like, well, we needed 10 points anyway, so let's get the field goal on 1st and 20, and then let's try to get an onside kick. And the only time that worked last year was against the Cowboys and Falcons, where the Falcons stupidly looked at the ball for about 10 seconds, or for 10 yards, and then they picked it up. So that's all my frustration with Buffalo, where Miami played a solid game, but they got bailed out by Damian Harris's fumble. The Patriots should have won that game. Damian Harris got 100 yards on the ground, and they were driving, down to the 9-yard line. If Howard doesn't punch the ball out, I think the Pats win that game, even if they get the field goal. Because I was not. Tua played okay, but he did have that horrible interception to Jonathan Jones, which really kind of made me a little nervous. But fortunately, Damian Harris' fumble bailed out Tua, and he got the win. But I just look at the Dolphins' defense and go, I think they have just as good a corners as Pittsburgh does. They may not have the pass rush, but they have a good quality enough defense to think. I think Josh Allen could struggle very much the same as he did as in this week. And I think if they get 1 or 2 turnovers on Josh Allen, the Dolphins will win this game. If he plays a clean game, I think the Bills win. I think I'll have a clean game. And there's just a part of me going, Tua and Ben are 2 totally different quarterbacks. Tua, is still kind of trying to figure it out. It's only his, 10th start, where Ben was, seasoned. He made some quality game-managing throws to help move the chains when they needed to help chew off the clock and get into spots to where they can get the field goal to basically ice the game. I don't think Tua will do that well against this Bills defense, because the Bills defense, for the most part, did a pretty good job through 3 quarters of the game. It wasn't until the block punt and the score after that kind of changed everything up. But I'm so concerned about the Bills that I have to hedge my bet here. I think this could be a 3-point game. If Josh Allen plays like he did, then this game is going to come down to basically a field goal, or if the Bills defense can get one more stop compared to Miami's. And I guess in a way I wouldn't be surprised if Miami won, because again, I think Miami's defense has a similar makeup, a little bit better in some areas compared to Pittsburgh's. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to close games like this, I have to go with the quarterback. Allen played really well in week 2 last year in Miami. Same scenario. I think he plays better than he did week 1, maybe not MVP level, but I do think that he plays well enough to win this game and make one more throw than Tua to get a bounce back win to give the Bills some confidence, because they dropped to 0-2. Then you got to start hitting the panic button, because now you're like, okay, what happened to this phenomenal team that I thought was the second best team in the conference? That obviously went away. So that's why I like the Buffalo Bills here to win straight up at the Miami Dolphins plus 3.5. The next game, the New England Patriots over the New York Jets. I'm going to take the New England Patriots here because I thought that the Patriots played a pretty solid game. I thought Mac Jones played the best out of all 3 rookie quarterbacks. However, I look at the Patriots, and the 2 of the concerning things were the fumbles and the mistakes and penalties. They had 87 yards, I believe, in penalties, and they really couldn't effectively, I felt like, make their tight ends effective. I thought Jonnu and Hunter, I guess Jonnu gets a pass. He was always considered the blocking tight end anyway. But Hunter was really missing, and besides Aguilar and Myers, no other receiver really made an impact for the Pats the entire game. And the Jets, and here's the thing about the Jets. I thought the Jets, if you really watch that game and most of the way through like I did, I thought the Jets played better than I thought. There were stretches where they were just stifling on defense. They got the fumble on Sam Darnold at the goal line, but it was a dumb aspect to play. A dumb aspect of the play they made. And when I look at how the Jets played, I think they're going to be competitive against New England. But basically why I took the Patriots -4, it's essentially the Panthers principle. They covered the spread exactly, so even if I get the game wrong, I just think it'll be a 4-point game. Maybe Mac Jones gets his first career comeback, and it's a 4-point game. And I just have to think, in this kind of game, Belichick has always done well against rookie quarterbacks, and I think that trend continues. If you look at what he did against Justin Herbert, if you look at what he's done against Kyler Murray, look at all these recent trends against these young quarterbacks, he always seems to do well in managing and holding, and I think the Jets aren't nearly as talented as the Dolphins. Though I do have to give Corey Davis credit. He did catch 2 big touchdowns, so he did have a nice day to earn his money yesterday for the Jets. But I'm going to take the Patriots here. I think they've only lost 2 times since 2013 in New York, 2013 and 2015 off the last second touchdown in overtime from Fitzpatrick. All the other times, the Patriots have won 6 of the last 8, and I got 7 of the last 9. You just keep going on. The Patriots usually tend to beat the Jets pretty often, and I just think, again, in this scenario, with how both teams played, the Pats are the better football team. That's why I like the New England Patriots here -4, and the New England Patriots straight up. The next game, the Philadelphia Eagles over the San Francisco 49ers. I am taking the Philadelphia Eagles here in a bit of an upset based on how I saw them play against the Atlanta Falcons. From every aspect of the game, they were better than the Falcons. Jalen had a 300-yard game, a 60-yard rushing game, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Only he, Jim Plunkett, I believe, and Kyler Murray only have had stat numbers like that throughout their careers, and Jalen looked solid. Miles Sanders at 75 yards. I thought he ran the ball effectively. I thought Devontae Smith catching his first touchdown. That was a big moment. And I just really like what I saw from the Eagles' offensive and defensive lines, being able to get the push on the Falcons' offensive line and being able to push back the Falcons' offensive line. And I know what people are going to say. The San Francisco defense is much more talented and more complete than the Eagles. Yes, it is. But the key thing that I think people have to realize is that the Niners almost blew a 28-point lead. The number 28 and Kyle Shanahan really do not seem to get along that well. Just nice reference there. But I think the reason why I'm taking the Eagles is because of what's happened with the Niners. That Niners secondary through the end of that second half against the Lions did not look that great, and it is believed that Jason Verrett, their number one corner, for the third time in his career, has torn his ACL. So best of luck to him. Best wishes to him. I think it's going to be his final year in the league, just because you just cannot trust his health due to his serious injuries. I just hope he can get healthy and get out there. But Raheem Mostert also left. Andre Greenlaw left with a groin injury. So those are some key defenders, and I think the Eagles' offensive line kind of showed you that they can hold their own against some dominant defensive players. And if the Niners aren't at full strength, I think Jalen's legs are also going to be kind of a key factor. I think Trey Lance, who did throw the first touchdown of the Niners season, will have more of an impact. But I think Jalen will have more of an impact with his legs, and I don't think Kyle will use Trey as often as he needs to in this kind of game against a very good Eagles front of offensive and defensive. And I just think, again, the Niners having to go to Philadelphia. I remember the last time I think that these two teams played in Philly, the Niners won, but the last couple times the Eagles have tended to be the victors in this game. I remember last year it was the Nick Mullins game where Nick Mullins coughed it up 3 times. That basically cost them the game, and they lost 25-20. Would I be surprised if the San Francisco 49ers won this game? Not at all. I think the Niners, probably a lot of people why they have the Niners is, they have this coaching staff, they have the better offensive line, and it's Jalen Hurts, though. This will only be his 6th start in his career coming up. But I just feel like from what I saw of the Eagles, I saw enough confidence and consistency out of the Eagles that they can beat a Niner team that's kind of been up and down, and it's having to travel cross-country to play this game. So that's why I like the Philadelphia Eagles here, plus 3.5, and the Philadelphia Eagles straight up. The next game, the Pittsburgh Steelers over the Las Vegas Raiders. This is one to where, even if the Steelers would have lost to Buffalo, I probably still would have taken the Steelers to win. But especially after the defensive performance I saw against the Buffalo Bills, I'm definitely taking the Pittsburgh Steelers at home to beat the Raiders. The Steelers and Raiders obviously have a great history going back to the 70s with the Immaculate Reception and all the great AFC Championship games they had through the 70s. And the Steelers usually tend to be able to beat the Raiders in Pittsburgh on a pretty good clip. I remember the last time they were there, I think Derek Carr had a moment to where he got them the lead, but then Ben was hurt. He left the game, and Mason Rudolph was able to get Chris Boswell in winning position to kick a field goal. I don't remember the year, but I think it was the last time they played. I think Ben will be able to manage pretty well. I think Chase and Deontay and James and Freiermuth and Ebron all should have quality games against the Raider defense that is okay in the middle. Their strength is their linebackers with KJ Wright and Denzel Perryman, but their secondary I don't think is that great. Their pass rush really isn't that really that good, and I think that the Steelers' offensive line with Trey, with their new right tackle, with their new right guard, everybody knew there, they did a pretty good job. And I think the Bills' pass rush I think was more serious than the Raiders, so I think the Steelers' offensive line will do a better job, and hopefully that allows Najee Harris to have more opportunities to run the ball effectively and consistently. Depending on how the Raiders do, I might take the Raiders plus 6. So now I will say that now, because since I am doing this video today before the game. So I might take the Raiders plus 6, depending on how they do. So that will be the one change I might make beforehand. But since I'm doing this video now, I'm going to take the Pittsburgh Steelers here minus 6, because I just think, again, they are, from that performance yesterday, that pretty much tells you the Steelers are basically in the playoff race and even the division race in the AFC North. How well that defense played and how solid that whole team is all around. Sounds like the Pittsburgh Steelers here minus 6 and the Pittsburgh Steelers straight up. The next game, the New Orleans Saints over the Carolina Panthers. This one to me was fairly easy after one of the shocking games of the day yesterday. 38-3 over the Green Bay Packers. The Saints win by 35 points. The worst loss in the Aaron Rodgers era. The Saints defense held Aaron Rodgers to the lowest quarterback rating from a reigning MVP in the next subsequent opening day start. I thought Kamara played well. Jameis Winston was the first quarterback to have 5 touchdowns and under 150 yards passing And I just feel like a lot of that stuff, do I think the Saints are really that good overall that they can blow out the Packers like that? No, I don't. But I think, you see enough from the Saints there that against the Panthers team that I give the Panthers, for a letter grade, I give them a B minus, a B. Like, I thought the Panthers played a good overall game, but they let the Jets hang in way too long, and that score pretty much tells you how that game was closer than people think. I thought Sam Darnold played good enough, 270 yards. Of course, the big touchdown to Robbie Anderson, which must have felt good for those two guys playing the Jets. Christian McCaffrey, again, was the star of the game. He had almost 200 yards from scrimmage. He had this, I think he said he had another 90-90 game. So that leaves him third all-time, or tied with Walter Payton third all-time for games where someone had 90 yards rushing and receiving. And it's just one of those things to where I think the Saints, I think Jameis has a little bit more zip on his ball. And I feel like Jameis, he played some effective game managing. And I feel like Jameis' playmaking will outshine Darnold's ability to play make. If Jameis goes in the gunslinger Jameis, then the Panthers get a turnover or two. The Panthers probably are going to win the game. But I just feel like what I saw out of Jameis was the most measured and consistent Jameis I've seen. Again, he maybe didn't need to do anything because the Saints basically just after they got the first interception on Rodgers, pretty much had the game intact. But I just feel like, again, if you're telling me with these kind of games, Kamara, McCaffrey cancel each other out, I think, the Saints have a little bit of a better receiving core. They have the better offensive line, and I trust their defensive line and secondary. Marshawn Lattimore will be big, though. He did sign a $97.5 million extension. However, he the same day he had a finger injury, so I think they said now he's week to week, or day-to-day to week to week. So that'll be an injury to look out for in the future. I think this game is going to be one of the more interesting competitive games. The Panthers-Saints games last year, the first one at least was pretty competitive. I do want to see how the rest of this goes for the Saints, because if they can blow out the Panthers, they can be a legitimate threat to the Bucs. You heard it here first. Being 100% serious. So we'll have to wait and see about that. But I'm taking the Saints here. Better quarterback, 2 dominating performances go against the Carolina team. I think can be competitive, and I just have to trust the Saints' structure overall compared to the Panthers. Sounds like New Orleans here -4, New Orleans straight up. The next game, the Denver Broncos over the Jacksonville Jaguars. I am taking the Denver Broncos here simply because the Jacksonville Jaguars laid a massive egg. I already talked about the Jaguars earlier. Where the Broncos, I thought the Broncos to me, if you had to compare them to a college football team right now in this current college football season, they are the University of Florida through 2 weeks. To where, you're going to look at the Broncos and go, look, they did their job. Teddy Bridgewater played a solid game. Melvin Gordon had 100 yards. Their defense got a lot of pressure and caused a couple turnovers. Their secondary is pretty solid. And Bridgewater can manage. And against a Jacksonville team that, Trevor Lawrence might have a much higher ceiling compared to Teddy Bridgewater. The Jaguars might have, some younger assets, and they're going to have more cap space and room to build. The Broncos are just clearly the better football team, better offensive line, going to be able to run the ball well with the guy at UNC and Melvin Gordon. Jerry Jeudy's ankle injury, thankfully, was a high ankle sprain, so he's not going to probably play for the next week. I don't think they're going to need him. KJ Hamler, Sutton, they'll all step up to help in that void. Noah Fant, I thought, did okay. And it's just one of those things to where, the Broncos played well enough against the Giants, and I feel like they could do the same kind of thing against the Jags. The Jags are worse than the Giants, I think, and so it's kind of the similar output. Well, we'll wait and see. It is going down to Jacksonville. It is down that heat, and the Saints just beat the Packers. So for the Jags beating the Broncos after that first week, it's not nearly as big a scale, but I do think that the Jags maybe could surprise people, maybe they're home and if they can play better. But who knows? But I'm going to take the Broncos here from week 1. They get to go in 2-0, and they're like I said, they're the University of Florida in college football right now. A good team. They're going to be 2-0, but they haven't really played anybody significant that really goes, oh, okay, the Broncos are here. The Broncos, are legitimate contenders. So we'll see. That's like the Denver Broncos here -6, and the Denver Broncos straight up. The next game, and one of the easier picks, the Arizona Cardinals over the Minnesota Vikings. The Arizona Cardinals have one of the most dominating performances out of the entire weekend, or entire slate of games yesterday. Kyler Murray had 5 total touchdowns and 1 interception. Christian Kirk had 70 yards and 2 touchdowns. James Conner and Chase Edmonds ran enough on the ground to keep them balanced. But the defense was the more impressive story. Chandler Jones with 5 sacks. One shy of Derek Thomas' record against the Seattle Seahawks back in, I believe, 1997. So, a absolute sterling performance by the Arizona Cardinals. If they keep playing like that, not only can they win the NFC West, they could possibly win the Super Bowl if they keep playing like that. And they're playing a Viking team that just did Viking things. I mean, Mike Zimmer. The man has to go, ladies and gentlemen. Like, you can't lose a game like that. You can't throw your quarterback under the bus where he, at 260 yards, 3 touchdowns. Did Kirk play phenomenal? No. Did he make some bad mistakes? Did he hold the ball a little bit too long? Sure. But you also had over 150 yards of penalties. You also went for it on 4th and 1 from your own 30. So in moments where, a tie isn't great and nobody likes ties in sports, but in a moment where you choked the game and gave Joe Burrow his second or third overall win, and Zach Taylor gets to not get criticized, that's a problem for Mike Zimmer, who's a much better coaching guy than Zach Taylor is. And with how the Cardinals looked, if they dominate the Vikings, which I kind of expect, it's going to be a long season for Mike Zimmer, and at the end of this year, he will get packed, and Kirk Cousins in his bubble, because he really wants to be socially distant, can travel away out of Minnesota and let Kellen Mond try to take the Vikings to a new level. So that's like the Arizona Cardinals here, -4, and the Arizona Cardinals straight up. The next game, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta laid a massive egg. I think that, Tampa, I don't think they're going to score 6 points because I think Tampa Bay secondary is not nearly as good as Philadelphia, so Matt Ryan will be able to move the ball. But do I think the Bucs offense can score 40 or 50 points on the Falcons? Yes. With how Brady looked, 4 TDs, 2 picks. Antonio Brown had a 100-yard game with a touchdown. Gronk had 2 touchdowns and 5 receptions for 90 yards. And the Bucs just were dominant, looked phenomenal defensively. The back end scares me, but I feel like just against this Falcons team, that just seemed like even when they were around the game, they had a couple 4th down stops on the Eagles. They just could never get it right to get them in a good spot to hold on and try to take the lead or take advantage of the game. I don't think Atlanta's going to be competitive. I think, again, it's a 12.5 point spread. If Atlanta would have been competitive against Philadelphia and lost, I probably would have taken Atlanta plus 12.5. But after you get blown out and the Eagles don't allow you to get a point, that 26 point loss, if the Eagles can beat you by 26, the Bucs can beat you by 13. And also, Brady also hasn't lost to the Bucs, or Brady hasn't lost to the Falcons, so that pretty much helps it too. And I feel good about where this game is going to go. Sorry for Atlanta. It's going to be a long year. But you do get to play the Giants next weekend, so good luck with that. So that's like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here, -12.5, and Tampa Bay Buccaneers straight up. The next game, the Los Angeles Chargers over the Dallas Cowboys. This is one to where I was basically looking at their games. I thought Dallas played a phenomenal offensive game. Defensively, they had a lot left to be desired, especially in their secondary. They did a good job stopping the run. Also, I think a huge problem was Zeke only had 11 carries for 33 yards. He's the highest paid overall running back at $90 million. That is not what a $15 million per year running back needs to be able to do. I also just liked what I saw out of the Chargers. They were able to get the ball about 6 minutes and 40 seconds left, and they were able to run the ball effectively and drain the clock out all the way through. Herbert did have that tough interception, and he did have that one fumble by Montez Sweat, which, again, not great, but overall I thought Herbert, besides that, had some really good accurate throws. Keenan Allen had a big game. Mike Williams made a couple nice catches. Detroit Guyton had a really nice, big 3rd down conversion catch. And I just was really impressed with how balanced the Chargers looked. Eckler did enough on the ground. He had a touchdown and 57 yards rushing. And I really think the Chargers, in this moment, their defense is a bit better than the Cowboys. And I feel like, again, the Chargers may not have the depth or the talent of the weapons, but they have enough weapons against the Cowboys defense that at home, with just kind of the relaxed expectation, I think Herbert outplays Dak in a pretty entertaining game that for both squads can basically keep their holds or keep their position in their divisions at a pretty good spot with a win. So that's like the Los Angeles Chargers here, -2.5, and the Los Angeles Chargers straight up. The next game, the Seattle Seahawks over the Tennessee Titans. This is one to where there's a part of me going, I think Tennessee is going to be angry, and they may take it out on Seattle, and that might mean Derrick Henry goes for about $180, $190, which for me in fantasy-wise, since I drafted number 1 overall in the league of mine, that'd be great. But I just think I can't watch the Titans game and give any confidence that they will be able to protect Ryan Tannehill or protect Derrick Henry. The Seattle Seahawks pass rush is not nearly as good as Arizona's. There's no Chandler or JJ on both those sides. But just the pressure that I saw Seattle get on the Indianapolis offensive line, that's all I needed to see to say, okay, Arizona, they might not have 5 sacks from one player, the Seahawks, but they can get enough pressure to cause Henry to not be able to get started and Tannehill to have a rough time. I am concerned about Julio and AJ going up against the Seattle secondary, because it's completely different going up against the Colts offense without T.Y. and going up against probably one of the best pairs of receivers they have in the National Football League. But at the end of the day, if it's going to come down to, kind of running and consistency, the Seahawks are at home. They've been dominant at home, one of the best home records in the NFL. And their road record's actually getting better, too. I think I heard that basically in their last 13 or 14 games, the Seahawks have won 12 of their last 13 East Coast games. So, they're doing pretty well outside of Seattle. So I'm going to have to give them more credit. I thought they were always an average road team and a phenomenal home team. They would be an above average road team and a phenomenal home team. So, to wait and see. Now I'm going to take the Seahawks here minus 5.5. I think Russell plays another great game. 11th game with 4 TDs, no interceptions for Russell Wilson. He is going to be Russell Wilson is. I don't think, let's not have the let Russ cook thing. I don't think he's going to be an MVP. I think that's going to be Mahomes right now. But I think Russell Wilson can just continue to show he just is a constant winner and a consistent winner that can definitely, his play alone will allow the Seahawks to be able to compete against the Rams and compete against the Cardinals in the biggest division games that they're going to have coming up. So that's why I like the Seattle Seahawks here, minus 5.5, and the Seattle Seahawks straight up. And in the final 2 games, the Kansas City Chiefs over the Baltimore Ravens. Ladies and gentlemen, I am a big Ravens fan, but I even know that this is becoming a yearly thing now. 4 straight years we have played the Chiefs, or 3 straight years we played the Chiefs. 4 straight years, Lamar's never beaten them. It gets worse every time. We have no running backs. We have no of our starting running backs. Marcus Peters went down. Miles Boykin's out. Rashad Bateman's out. We are basically a tight end and Hollywood Brown and a bunch of old, okay running backs in the past. And we're going up against a Chiefs team that, can we move the ball on them? Sure. But we're just playing a team that came back from a 12-point deficit against the second best team in the conference in the Browns and did it like it was nothing. So, that's all you need to know about this one. Do I think the Ravens have a chance? Let's see how they do against the Raiders. If they were all fully healthy, I might have felt better about it. I still probably would have taken the Chiefs to win, but after this is just going to be the annual beating that we get of the year, signed by KC Masterpiece in barbecue by the Chiefs every year. I think the number is way too low. I would have put it up to about 5 to 6. I think that's how different the Chiefs are. But 2.5, take that line every day. Takes a field goal to win the game, and I just don't see the Ravens being any competitive at all in this game. So, we'll have to wait and see. So that's like the Kansas City Chiefs here, minus 2.5, and the Kansas City Chiefs straight up. And finally, in the Monday night game, the Green Bay Packers over the Detroit Lions. I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers here because even if they had their worst game, usually when Aaron Rodgers gets embarrassed like that, the next week he usually tends to play really well or well enough to win the game. And it's the Lions. I think the Lions over the last 25, 30 years have only won 2 times in Lambeau since 1990. And the Lions, look, they had a nice kind of, heroic underdog effort of Rocky to where it's like, oh, we could have done it. We were 25 yards away. We got the punch out on Deebo Samuel. But then at the end, it was just they couldn't do it. And that's what I'm saying. But I saw the Packers bad enough that the Lions defense, if they're motivated, especially without David Bakhtiari, and they get enough pressure on Rodgers, they can keep within 10.5 points. They can keep that game within 10.5 points. And even if they get down by 20 points, we at least know, hey, the Lions won't give up. Jared Goff, I think will play okay. I thought the DeAndre Swift had a nice game, and I think the Lions and Packers, the one thing you can get in the Lions is they're not going to die down, and the one thing you can say about the Packers is maybe they're not nearly as good, especially with Bakhtiari, as good as people thought they were. We'll have to wait and see, but I think 10.5 just after, it could be a quick 1-week reaction. I think it's way too many points. Take the Lions here. They're better than you think. They're going to have more fight, and I just feel, again, the Lions are more motivated, where it just seems like with Rodgers, if they lose this one, he's just kind of going through the motions at this point. And not really caring. Tough way to go out, though, for a lot of people, including myself, that had the Packers to win. That was probably the most shocking outcome of them all, just in totality. The Cardinals beating the Titans, that's not as surprising. It was just the amount. But the Packers and Saints, that was just shocking at all levels. Nobody thought they would win. Nobody thought it would be that bad. So, that's it. So, comment, rate, subscribe, please, on my videos. I appreciate all the comments and new subscribers and the old and all the feedback and the appreciative comments, and keep on doing that if you want to. And please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page. People like Bridgewater's Finest, Keith Bailey, Andrew Warren, Gio Knows. They all make great predictions like I do. And you can also talk to other people, the wise guys. You can talk to all of us and give your thoughts, make your predictions, just interact with us about any football topic that's out there. And we'll definitely chime in a ring with you. Or chime in with you. So that is it. So until week 3 next week, good luck to all players, coaches, fantasy players, and fellow prognosticators. My fantasy team was horrible this week. I got absolutely shellacked because I had Aaron Rodgers and Derrick Henry, and they ended up having the 2 worst games that I needed them to have. Just my luck. But hopefully I can bounce back, just like everybody else. Hopefully they can bounce back after a week 1 loss in fantasy. But until then, good luck to all those individuals I said before. And until week 3, this is Matt the NFL Fanatic signing off. Until next time, so long.